When Ben awoke, the room was so cold he could see the plume of his breath in the dim glow from a streetlight outside his apartment window. He also couldn't move. Nearly every muscle in his body felt completely numb and heavy. The only muscles he could control were his eyes, and he managed to glance at the alarm clock on the nightstand beside him, which showed it to be 4 a.m. A terrible fear came over him in that moment, a disturbing sense that something was not right. Something bad was coming. His heart pounded so hard it felt like a frantic prisoner trapped in his chest cavity, twisting and writhing, desperate to escape. Then he heard it. 2 distinct sounds muffled on the other side of his bedroom door. One of them was a heavy thud, the other a harsh-sounding breath. The sounds followed each other in a rhythmic pattern. First the heavy thud, then the sound of a gravelly breath, one after another. Each breath exuded a sound of intense suffering. Ben listened, paralyzed, eyes glued to the door. He waited. The head appeared, materializing through the door, black and dome-shaped, as though covered by a hood. Contained within was a pale and wispy face, shaped like a skull. It looked as if the face was made of smoke. The rest of the figure loomed through the doorway, tall and broad, and completely black like a shadow. The figure was the darkest shadow in the room. It moved toward Ben, whose eyes were now frantically darting back and forth in his head, mimicking the movements he wanted his body to make. He moaned in horror, trying to scream so he could alert his roommate Tom in the room across the hall, but his mouth wouldn't open. The shadow man reached out to him, extending claw-shaped hands with fingers that looked like black knives. The hands fell upon his head, blanketing his vision, and all he saw for a moment was pitch darkness. Then a feeling of tumbling. The thick darkness began to lighten. Helpless, he felt like he was dangling over a foreboding infernal pit. Rumbling noises resonated from within the pit, accompanied by moist ripping sounds. Then 2 eyes appeared, flashing a silver glow amid the thickening shadows. More eyes blazed to life, casting a mesmerizing stuttery glow throughout the pit. Then he heard the shrill, grotesque spluttering of the creatures as they began to stir into a frenzy. They climbed up the sides of the pit, and for a brief moment he caught a glimpse of one of them. Emaciated, shriveled gray skin, a head with a pig-like snout displaying rows of sharp teeth. This one was yanked back down into the darkness, and it was then that Ben realized what caused the moist ripping sound. These monsters were impelled to eat one another. Ben watched them gnaw one another down to the surface of their brittle bones, as black slime gushed with each frenzied bite. A terrible feeling came over him. It was a raging lust that felt like blazing fire increasing in his veins. It was then that he found the ability to scream. He burst forth with a maniacal scream, wriggling within the grasp of the invisible appendage that bound him. This lust was an unbearable desire to join their fiendish kind. Then a mist engulfed his vision as the painful lust dissipated from his body. Moments later he found that he had fallen partway from his bed, face pressed up against the bristles of the carpet. Ben's roommate stood in the doorway, a look of worry contorting his face. "Are you okay? I heard you screaming," his roommate asked. "Yeah," Ben replied. "Just a bad dream." Ben sat on the edge of his bed for a while that morning, contemplating what he had experienced. He was greatly relieved he hadn't been absorbed by it, for he was sure he had nearly been devoured by the mouth of hell.